Who's got a semi?
Oh, always, absolutely always.
It'd be really awkward if I said I've got one right now, but welcome along to another live episode of Red Tinted Glasses live on Thursday evening, and delighted to see some of you already joining us, including Jimmy, who, of course, up in Shetland with the connection problems that Shetland have been having today. Good to see you've managed to ensure your internet connection is live and working for the episode. And feel free for those watching on our YouTube channel to get involved in the comments with your thoughts from last night's game. What were you most impressed for during the game? Who disappointed? Was there something that didn't really take your fancy? And something, Callum, that tends to not take your fancy at Todgy is, of course, the pie stall in Section S. I'm sure our listeners and viewers are eagerly awaiting your update. Did you get a chicken curry pie last night?
I did get a chicken curry pie. When I asked for a chicken curry pie, I didn't get given a Scotch one this time, and it was actually very, very good. Just a shame that was the last chance we're going to have it this month, but I was quite impressed. It was tasty, had a bovril as well, kept me warm, and maybe even the highlight of the game for me.
Well, I'm glad you managed to get in sample it. He said one last chance this month, so I'm glad it also lived up to your expectations as well. Of course, the game itself was an opportunity for the Dons to get back to Hampden. Lower league opposition tends to potentially offer up a banana skin. Three changes Jim Goodwin went with. Matty Kennedy was one of the changes that came in, along with Vicente Bazawin and Hayden Coulson. Were you surprised to see as many as three changes being made from the starting 11 from Sunday?
Um, I don't know if surprised is the word. I would. I think something probably essential, given Jack McKenzie having went off against Hearts. But I was quite happy with the three. Nothing like wholesale changes, which could have potentially thrown us off completely. Three changes, freshen it up a little bit, and it was positive changes in the starting lineup as well.
Mm.
You'd probably say, which given championship opposition, albeit pretty good championship opposition, very happy with.
Yeah, and Mark Robertson, good to have you along as well, joining over from Houston in America. So, going to all parts of the world this episode tonight. And his comment coming in was the first half was relentless, second half shambolic. We'll get on to the second half in a little bit, Mark, but it was relentless in that first half. And Callum, one thing we've been quite critical of at times
Mhm.
um, about Aberdeen this season has been our slow pace in the first half, slow to get going. Maybe did take us, 7 or 8 minutes, but once we got into stride, maybe down to a bit of Partick Thistle's naivety in terms of how open and direct they were in coming forward. But look, if the opposition gives you the space in behind to exploit, you've got to do that. And we looked very dangerous going forward throughout that first half.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a bit better, and without being it being the prettiest football, perhaps at times. And I think with the fact two of the goals were the way they were, perhaps
Yeah.
tainted my enjoyment of the 3-0 lead that we took. But it was encouraging, and to be fair, credit to Park Thistle as well. And obviously, it was probably their downfall being so open, but you would have liked to think that we'd have maybe cut them open anyway, regardless. So the fact they came up here and tried to play their usual game, credit to them. But thankfully, we had too much, and that was without being absolutely immense, to be fair.
Yeah, credit to Partick Thistle for the way they came up and played the game because, in the preview that I did with Kieran, we discussed about whether they would just come up and park the bus, but Ian McCall set them up to have a go. And I think also credit to the fans as well that travelled up because they didn't stop making a noise throughout the 90 minutes, regardless of being 3-0 or 3-1 down throughout. A very good support that I know was very noisy for me being back in the South Stand as well. Because don't often hear the away fans from the Red Shed, but yeah, credit to them and the noise they made.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought they were very good. Probably the best set of away fans we've had up so far this season. Obviously, probably not the same amount as Hearts, but made more noise, stuck with the team a little bit more, which you probably would expect. I can imagine a few of them were Very G'd up for the game, shall we say, given the journey from Glasgow on a Wednesday night, travelling in such big numbers. But they didn't stop, and I admired their commitment to the one that went a Partick Thistle bonnet with "Fuck the Old Firm" on it. Really enjoyed that. Absolutely love how much they hate the Old Firm.
Yeah, exactly. Credit to them as well because it's so easy to support one half of the Old Firm. So absolutely credit to them. And credit must go to Duke, who is continuing his fine form and really turning into that cult hero that all fans will fall in love with. Because once again, just showing that pace, power that is causing defences problems in the Premiership, let alone a Championship defence. But credit for his goal must also go to Hayden Coulson back in the starting lineup and does really well to win that ball in midfield. You know, it kind of reminded me of that tenacity that Jack McKenzie showed, kind of similar area of the pitch, similar sort of kind of challenge, but what a brilliant ball as well. The vision almost instantly from winning the ball back in midfield, his head was straight up and honestly like a greyhound out the trap. Duke was down past the defender and yeah, like Ramadani's ball through to him at the weekend, well weighted from Hayden. And unlike his chance in the first half on Sunday, finishes really well past the keeper, Duke, and kind of maybe eases any nerves that some fans may have had going into this tie.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been there before, haven't we, as Aberdeen fans, in a cup tie that you're expected to win, and the longer it goes on, the nerves start to build, and not only in the crowd, you can see it in the team as well. So thankfully, Duke showed nerves of steel and took his goal very well, but ever since you got that wee puppy, called him Duke, don't know how you got it past Gemma. Regardless, there's been an upturn in form, so it's going well for him.
Yeah, I know. I'm just glad that she came up with a name and it just so conveniently happened to link in nicely. So I wasn't going to make any sort of arguments. But Hayden Coulson seemed to be the hero we didn't know we were going to get on a cup night because he seemed to just be everywhere throughout that first half. And it was his involvement again, Callum. Good play down the Thistle right. Probably not helped by the fact that Aaron Muirhead was on a booking and had to be subbed. What was it, halfway through the first half? Lucky to even stay on the pitch. I think there was I can't remember who it was on. Was it Leighton Clarkson? There was a challenge where he should have probably seen a second booking, but Leighton Clarkson's cross come shot saw some heavy deflections off the Partick Thistle defence and find its way into the back of the net. Once again, you know, Thistle maybe not covering themselves in glory from that side of things, but from an Aberdeen point of view, really good to see that intent going forward.
Absolutely. I think the foul was maybe on Duke again. I have a feeling. I can't quite remember though. Weird. I was absolutely sober, and my memory of some of the game is just shocking because I was weirdly quite bored. But thankfully, especially down that left hand side, I think relentless is a fantastic word for us to use. We were making things happen, and whilst that goal was not pretty by any stretch of the imagination, I think it just came from our willingness to get at them, get the ball forward, get the ball into that box, and be direct. I don't think they quite could handle it. And although maybe not so pleasing on the eye, we got our just rewards, thankfully.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, we seem to be kind of really peppering the Thistle goal. I remember Leighton Clarkson had a shot from distance that just went narrowly past the post where, you know, being able to sit in the south stand, there was maybe an option of a better pass. But, you know, when you're 2-0 up, you're going to want to take those chances, you know, to get yourself on the score sheet. And Hayden Coulson celebrating his dad's birthday a day early with the perfect present. So happy birthday, Steve, if you're tuning in tonight. Your son got himself his first Aberdeen goal. Although, Callum, is it his goal or is it an own goal?
I'm very glad it was given to him. I'm not convinced it's his goal. I don't know if it was. Presumably, they think it was on target in the first place. Aided massively by deflection, but regardless, I think based on his performance, he deserves it to be given it to him. And at this moment in time as well, and he's been out the team with illness, and Steve's birthday now, so it was very, very fitting. And I'm very happy for him because he was absolutely dynamite down that left-hand side all game long, really. Also cutting inside as well. But I don't know. I think it's generous, but we're not going to take it away from him by any means. Not at all.
No, we're not. And with Connor Barron being on the bench to start the game, Leighton Clarkson seemed to have more of a advanced role last night, and I was quite impressed with him. Picking up the ball and really kind of driving at the heart of the Thistle defence. And I think along with both the pace and movement of Majowski and Duke respectively, having someone of Leighton Clarkson's ability really kind of caused Thistle their own problems because they didn't know whether he was going to look to shoot from distance with the quality that he has, or look to play that killer pass that we also know that he can provide.
Absolutely. I think that's the sort of benefit of having the likes of him and Barron in alongside Ramadani. I think if it's McCrory and Ramadani, they're pretty similar in the way they like to play, whereas the other two technically a little bit better and a little bit more of a creative spark. That's not to take anything away from the other two at all, but it just adds a little bit of a different dimension to our midfield, whilst also both being sort of capable to do a little bit of the dirty work as well. Probably Barron more so than Clarkson. That's despite them not being particularly large in stature. But I was impressed certainly with Leighton Clarkson once again, and good to see him getting back to it since I didn't think he had his best game against Hearts on Sunday.
Yeah, and I suppose maybe in that Annan game as well, we saw the similarities that you mentioned there about McCrory and Ramadani, where some of our midfield play was quite passive in that game. Whether you want to blame the pitch or not is another thing. But yeah, we seem to have a little bit more urgency in midfield, and obviously Jim Goodwin, changing our formation to a three at the back, 3-5-2, I think is what we started the game with, and he himself admitting that the change in formation really had an impact on the second half, and taking full responsibility, which is good to see, but asking fans not to dwell on it. Well, Jim, that's what we're here to do, is dwell on it, which we'll come on to. But defensively throughout that first half, Callum, Thistle did look to stay on the front foot, but I thought defensively, first half, we looked pretty resolute, dealt with most of the threats that Thistle offered very well. Obviously, as well, Jaden Richardson wasn't in the team. Do you think that was an influence maybe on how defensively solid we were, or reading too much into it being an easy target?
I think a little bit. Reading into it a little bit too much, and that's despite me, not being Jaden Richardson's biggest fan. At this moment in time, shall we say, I don't know how much of a difference it would have made if he was in there out there instead of Matty Kennedy or Knox. I suppose Richardson would have been more benefited being high up the park rather than being at his regular sort of right back. So I don't think it would have made too much difference considering how high up the park he usually is. But to be fair, I did think Matty Kennedy, when it did come to defensive duties, sort of dropping into that wing back role, kind of, if you like, fared pretty well.
Yeah, I no complaints at Matt Kennedy filling in that position, and I think if it's something that Jim Goodwin is considering, to other than not move Ross McCrory back there or keep him in that three alongside Stewart and Scales, then I'm all for that as well. I think it's something that a lot of us have picked up on, that we don't have much cover there at right back, and I suppose with the greatest of respect to Partick Thistle, it's the ideal sort of opposition to try Matty Kennedy in that position and see how he gets on, and it gives Jaden Richardson that rest and maybe just puts that little bit of doubt in the back of his mind that his position's under threat. And also given the nature of the goal that we could have conceded on Sunday with how Alex Cochrane ghosted in behind him, it just makes him think that, okay, like I need to work on a few things if I really want to cement my place in this team. And for all the good that we did going forward in that first half, it could have been even better. There was a few chances that were passed up, and one player that really is not getting the rub of the green so far in front of goal, since he said that he had the ambitions of finishing top scorer in Scotland, is of course Bojan Majowski. A brilliant opportunity to make it 4 on the verge of half time, but pretty much it felt like half of the Thistle team were on the goal line to stop the attempt, and stop it they did. i- is it just luck not falling for Bojan, or is he in a bit of a rut, as Noel Blaha says?
Um, Probably a combination of the both. Certainly with that chance that you're referring to, I know you felt at the time maybe you could do a little bit better.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more he could have done. I suppose maybe he could have taken a touch to taken time to take a touch, set himself, maybe pick his spot a little bit better.
Mhm.
But as you mentioned, there was sort of three defenders on the line back there as well as the goalkeeper. So I don't know if there's too much he could have done other than get it on target and maybe hope for the best.
Mhm.
Um, Look, he's still 23 years old. I think
Yeah.
him and Duke playing together, still relatively new partnership as well, because although Bojan had been in the team for quite a while, Duke usually coming off the bench, starting together, maybe taking a bit of getting used to, perhaps for Bojan. And he's 23 years old, and strikers go through this. Certainly, as great Alan Shearer once said regarding that chance, you should be worried when he's not getting in those positions, not when he's getting there and missing the chances. So he'll get the goal trail once again, but on that, of him finishing top goal scorer, might not even happen in terms of Aberdeen with the way Duke's going right now.
No, I know, and the guy next to me, who he goes down as my memorable moment of the game last night, and more on that in a minute, because he said I think he's up to 5 or 6 goals for the season now, Duke, and you know where where Duke is shining, Majowski appears to be slipping a bit. Is the first sentence that Noel puts in that comment, because of course this episode will go on out on audio. So for those of you tuning in, that's the point that Noel's making. But it kind of goes back to the point we made on the last episode, Callum, about did Majowski need a rest? And we look at Christian Ramirez, this whole going one striker last season, regardless of the form of Christian Ramirez. Well, if Bojan is having a blip, a dip in form, struggling, we've got Duke scoring last season when Ramirez wasn't scoring. It felt like we as a team weren't scoring. At least this season, we do have options throughout the team, and I feel like we've got goals from other areas to rely on.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I saw something on Twitter today. I think it's from that agent Scotland, where that we've scored 40 goals across all
Yeah.
competitions this season, which is I was quite shocked at, to be honest. I know a lot of them did come in the Premier Sports group stages against somewhat lesser oppositions, but regardless, if you told us that at this point in the season we'd have scored 40 goals last season, I would not have believed you, given the way
Mhm.
things were going. Um, Look, it's not ideal the form Miovski is in right now, but he's young. It's clear his abilities and his goal scoring form will return at some point. So
Mhm.
it is just good that the squad's been built in a way that instead of him scoring, Duke steps up to the plate, and then you've still got
Exactly.
Ramirez on the bench as well, who, although not everyone's cup of tea, did score a lot of goals for us last season in a pretty bad team in terms of creating chances, and that was without taking the penalties as well too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very good point. And I suppose on that, then, we saw at halftime 2 changes made by Jim Goodwin. Bojan coming off to be replaced by Christian Ramirez. And I was slightly surprised that change coming at halftime, because the discussion amongst our group at halftime was, would he continue to play Bojan and maybe try and boost his confidence by getting a goal? But Jim Goodwin coming out at full time saying that had Bojan picked up a yellow card, he would be suspended for the semi final. So he felt, with the position of the game as it was an opportunity to give Christian some minutes under his belt, which of course has been lacking this season. And Leighton Clarkson was taken off, a bit of tightness in his calf. So Jim Goodwin looking to protect him for the weekend, allowing Connor Barron to continue to get more minutes under his belt on his return from injury. And Callum, what was your thoughts on Christian Ramirez? Because he seemed to be a player that divided opinion on social media last night with his performance. Some saying it was pretty poor, but I thought he looked a lot sharper, a lot fitter and quicker than
Mm.
he was last season, and pretty unlucky not to score with that one-on-one opportunity, which was well saved by the Thistle keeper, and nearly scored an absolute wonder goal where he was already looking to see where the keeper was before he even chested the ball down, and then he does so and volleys it on target. Well, it
Mm.
looked from the south stand anyway that keeper knocks round the post for a corner.
First of all, on Jim Goodwin, two smart changes, all for
Mhm.
those. And second of all, for Ramirez, I thought he came on and looked okay. I mean, it's
Yeah.
clear to see that maybe a little bit of rust involved in that first chance where he could have possibly lifted it slightly, but did well to get in that position to start with. I thought some of his all-round play was pretty good. His link-up play times coming a
Mhm.
little bit too deep for me, but if that's what he's doing to get involved, then at least there's two strikers on the park. Then it doesn't have too much of an issue. Um, I thought he looked okay. I think he's desperate to grab a goal. However,
Yeah. Yeah, but then in saying that though, there was two opportunities where probably
yeah.
he goes and plays in Vinny with an opportunity, and I can't remember who he does the first time. Where on the other hand, I thought Vinny was quite greedy at times yesterday. I thought
Mm,
Christian was very unselfish for a
yeah.
striker that is probably desperate for a goal.
Yeah, my dad mentioned that at the time, so I think credit to that. I think his attitude clearly has gotten a bit better recently. Given the fact he was given 45 minutes, I think that'll also only be good for him to actually
Mm,
get some time, whereas previously it's been sort of 5-10 minutes at most at the end of
yeah.
games. I still like to see him getting involved a little bit more at times, particularly in games if we're chasing it or whatever. Um, but I think those 45 minutes were very important, and good for him as well, getting involved. And I thought he did look sharper. I do agree with
Mhm.
you in that sense. And the fact you mentioned, some strikers would have maybe been selfish in those
Mm.
particular occasions and gone for it. And to be fair, who could blame them really? But he did look to playing his teammates and probably choose the better option as well. So I think credit has to go to him for that. And I think there is still a place for Christian Ramirez at the club and getting game time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a lot of games, coming up between now and the World Cup, and then whether or not what happens in January happens. But we've got a semi-final to look forward to. Is that an incentive for him to maybe hang around until the end of the season, which of course is when the end of his contract comes? But the second half, when you're 3-0 up at home, you should be cruising, right, Callum?
Yes.
However, as Kaiser rightly points out, good to have you along, Kaiser, we still can't defend corners. That
Yeah.
Achilles heel really hurting us. However, on this occasion, I do have a bit of sympathy because I do think it's a foul on Ross McCrory, but um, yeah, the guy next to me and a couple of guys around me as well thought Kellerow should be doing a lot better at
Mhm.
keeping the ball out of the net, regardless foul or no foul.
Yeah. Thought it could have been a foul having watched it back. And at the time, maybe not so much, but it does look like he climbs all over. I think it's Ross
Mm,
McCrory.
yeah.
Although I did think definitely Roos could maybe do a bit better. But to be fair to Brownlee, he does well to get all like over the ball and head it straight into the ground. So the power probably does make it very difficult
Mm,
for Keller-Roos. But it is typical that it was going to be a set piece. I think Party probably deserved the goal on the basis of most of it, given the
yeah.
way they came at us and were quite open and things like that. And I suppose for the travelling fans, something to celebrate, good for them. But it's just annoying that it has to be another set piece. But even prior to that, I think the change in formation and things like that also disrupted our play and
Mm,
sort of slowed
yeah.
us down a little bit.
Yeah, and again, Jim Goodwin fully acknowledging that change in formation did impact us, and it was a shame because once that goal went in, there was a real sense of nervousness kind of went around Pataudry every time Partick got a set piece or a corner, certainly a set piece in and around our box. And I remember there was another, I'm sure it was a corner that again it was put to the back post and they were climbing all over Anthony Stewart. And I think it ended up going out for a goal kick. But I couldn't believe that only Anthony Stewart was like, is that not a foul? And nobody else seemed to be, even bothered by that. But going back to the point about the guy sitting next to me, we can't defend corners. But my memorable moment was him turning to me and going, is there a suggestion box here? Because I want to request that we use that training complex at West Hill to work on our throw ins because they're absolutely terrible.
Funny you say that. That's what Adam said. My brother next to me, he was like, every other team seems to be able to get the ball into play quickly and make things happen. Or wait, are you talking about attacking or defending them?
It seemed to be any, like,
Right.
because did we not also have a foul? Did Hayden also not have a foul throw in? Yeah,
We'll let
one
him
of the
off.
worst throw-ins I've ever seen. I mean, even I could see that was a foul throw-in.
We'll let him off given the game he had. But yeah,
Yeah.
Adam mentioned it. He was like, we're so slow at getting the ball back into play from throw-ins.
Mhm.
Everyone's static and there seems to be no movement, no open man. But every other team utilizes them well. Whereas we just seem to, it slows everything down so
Yeah.
much. I agree with the man next to you.
Yeah, that was probably, I guess, one of the only negatives, along with our inability to continue to defend corners, from last night. And also, what is it with the first aid team at Pataudry? They have no sense of urgency about them. It was the same on Sunday when Peter Haring was down, especially the guys with the oxygen tanks who just ambled on Sunday. And then even last night when the referee called for the stretcher, there's absolute snail's pace going on. It's like,
No.
there's going to be added time on top of added time.
Yeah. Do you remember when they used to sprint on? I don't know, maybe they're not allowed now because of like health and safety, but I remember when physios
Like,
and everyone like that used to just absolutely bomb it on to get the help. But I don't know whether
yeah,
now, given they're carrying things and we don't want them to get injured as well at the same time, I don't know if that makes a difference. But yeah, but certainly on Sunday, they definitely took the piss.
I would hate someone to have a life-threatening injury at Pataudry, because as the guy next to me from work said, I'd be better treating myself if I had a medical emergency at Pataudry by the time half of them got to me.
Possibly, but maybe it's the health and safety things. Body got mad these days, isn't it? I
It
feel.
is, yeah. Back to the football. We continue to make changes, looking to give players minutes. One of those players who hasn't had a lot of first team minutes this season since signing from Fleetwood Town is Shaden Morris. And I think Shaden showed exactly why he hasn't had a lot of minutes. I said it after the game against Annan that he failed to grasp his opportunity when given the start, and he really failed to impress. Well, me anyway, and I think a lot of others last night.
I don't want to be too critical of him. He's still.
I will.
I know you fucking will. There's never any doubt about that. But what is he like? 20 years old, maybe not played too much first team football. But yeah, it doesn't look good so far. I will give the benefit of doubt that he will improve. I think raw is the word I'm going to use, but yeah, we do need to see some signs of progress, which admittedly probably hard to come by given lack of first team football. But
Hmm.
last night maybe showed a bit of a reason as to why that's the case.
Yeah, and last night also showed a reason why when you're bringing on Ryan Duncan, and I think compare and contrast the two. I know people are liking to compare Matty Kennedy in that as a trio, but Matty Kennedy for me can offer a bit more in terms of defensively, as we saw at right wing back yesterday, and I don't think that Ryan Duncan or Shaden Morris are ever going to be deployed there. But I felt that Shaden was often kind of hiding or a bit reluctant to kind of get involved in some challenges, and just kind of pointing, it's your man, like, well, no, it's actually yours, man, like, go and do your job. Like, if you wanted someone just to run around and look like a headless chicken, I'll take your shirt and do that job, and I'll do it for free. But Ryan Duncan comes on and he's got that energy about him, that directness, not afraid to take on the man. And he scored his first goal for Aberdeen a few weeks back, and probably wasn't how he pictured his first Aberdeen goal. Um, but I'm sure he's dreamed many a time of firing a ball into the top corner in front of the RDS. And what a way to ease any nerves that may have been, and really put the icing on the cake last night.
I think that goal was needed at that point, to be fair. And I think most impressively was when I've seen Ryan Duncan, a lot of the time it's a lot of his left foot, which obviously is stronger foot, but rarely have I seen him go to use his right foot. And then he
Mm,
goes and sticks on in the top corner like that, like it's no issue, as if he's predominantly right footed. It
yeah.
was very impressive, and it certainly looks like he enjoyed that goal quite a lot as well. So good for him. Hopefully more to come, and probably a player that you could be arguing, as we should be seeing more of right now, especially. I don't know whether there might be a loan coming up for him in January, perhaps, to get him a bit more experience at sort of first team level. But he looks like if he did need to come in, he would not look out of place whatsoever in this fits and starts we've seen him in anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to see him involved and look forward to seeing more of him in the future. Obviously, there's been some absences in the squad. I think Mark picking up in the comments that the Dante Polvara wasn't in the squad again. Last night he wasn't in the matchday squad again at the weekend. So maybe some moves afoot for certain players. Maybe we're looking at loaning a few players out already. Unless there's some injury problem that we're not aware of, and certainly Jim Goodwin hasn't disclosed to the media when asked in his press conferences. But Callum, we got through to the semi-finals. It felt like we would end up with Celtic. We all wanted Kilmarnock, so we got Rangers instead. The Huns at Hampden, happy?
Almost a bit happier than if it was Kilmarnock, because Kilmarnock in the League Cup, again, with Dennis McInnes in charge and Ash Taylor's there, doesn't fill me with confidence, to be honest. In fact, it sounds quite disgusting because there'd be a big crowd, probably a terrible time, and we'd be let down and very upset. Rangers, on the other hand, obviously a lot better team, but to be the best, you got to beat the best, as Chris Eubanks once said.
Wow.
And you'd like to think there'd be a big crowd at Hampden. You'd like to think the players would be up for it. And by the time that rolls around, we'll have played them in the league. We'll have played Celtic again in the league as well. So hopefully the new players that aren't used to this league or games like that, perhaps, will maybe be a bit more prepared. And yeah, it's all right. I'd rather that than Celtic, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. I am 100% clipping up that Eubank impersonation in preparation for the week before the cup final as well. But you're right. I think for me, as long as we avoided Celtic, by all accounts, I listened to the last 10 minutes on my way home of the game at Ibrox, and Dundee seemed to be chance after chance. I know the game's a while away and they've got a lot of issues going on, but there's a chance for us to strengthen our team between now and then, and you could argue, yes, there's a chance there for them to do the same, but also weaken as well. Let's just hope, given I'm sure we'll be given the East Stand, not the West Stand, because we can't upset the loyal, is that we channel that inner 2018, roll it back to Lewis Ferguson smashing it past Alan McGregor. And when, there wasn't a huge Aberdeen support there that day, I think it's fair to say, but it doesn't matter how many fans are in the stands. It matters what happens on the pitch, of course. And we got the job done that day. Let's hope we can do the same at Hampden in January.
Yep, no, I absolutely agree. One concern is, however, they'll be back to just playing just playing domestic football, no European football, which is a chance for them to stick a sort of run together, which is quite upsetting, to be honest. But we'll take it as it comes, and I'm sure Jim Goodwin will have them prepared properly when the time comes around. And I think the experience, having played Celtic and Rangers once we're back from the World Cup break as well, will hopefully stand us in good stead.
Yeah, and obviously that is to come in January. Coming up this weekend, hopefully Jim Goodwin has us prepared for the trip to Motherwell. Callum, would you see any changes from the team made? Obviously, there's a few of you in the comments. Kaiser saying that he would have Ryan Duncan in before Vinny, probably alluding to the fact of Vinny's kind of inconsistent form and what we've seen of Ryan Duncan. And look what happened last time Vinny was on the bench for a league game and then came on. And a few calls around whether or not we would see the likes of Ramirez, Duke, and Bojan all starting as well. I think Jeff Moran there in the comments. Could there be a formation that we could accommodate all three? Do you see much in the way of change? Obviously, as I said, Jim Goodwin alluding to the fact that Leighton Clarkson had that bit of tightness in his calf. Could we see him maybe rested? That does then open up a space, but would you likely see Connor Barron come in for there instead?
Yes, probably. I don't know whether Jaden Richardson's going to come back in. If we're going to go with wing backs, technically he should be better defensively than Matty Kennedy. However, I'm not so sure of that, so I don't know whether that's one that's probably playing on Jim Goodwin's mind. Hopefully Leighton Clarkson's okay, because I think it'd be good to see him and Barron in there alongside Ramadani. But that would probably mean Basalin dropping out. So it'll be interesting, I suppose, if Hayes is back fit, as Mark Robertson suggests in the comments. It's good problems to have, put it that way. And we were trying to predict what was going to happen on Sunday. We had no idea and got it wrong, so probably going to be the case again. But I think Richardson, possibly for Kennedy, is maybe likely.
And then, as Chris Kellis asks,
Oh, God.
who steps up and deals with Kevin Van Veen as he inevitably looks to score his goal against Aberdeen? Well, Anthony Stewart, maybe?
Oh, God. Hopefully between the three of them there's enough. Goodness me.
Yeah. Anyway, to look ahead to the game this weekend, I caught up with Motherwell vlogger Goggsy to preview the game this weekend. Goggsy, welcome back to the show. Pleasure to have you on, of course. We couldn't get you on earlier in the season. You had some family stuff going on, but delighted to hear the positive news that you shared that your dad has been found. So, just want to extend my well wishes. And I know Callum, if he could have joined us today, would have been doing the same, that your dad was found safe and well.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a turbulent time for most of us.
Yeah, no, I think those that, maybe watch your channel as well will have kind of seen some of the emotion that has been coming out of your video. So I think everyone is definitely relieved to hear the safe outcome. But of course, you are on Red Tinted Glasses to speak about football matters as Aberdeen head to Lanarkshire, looking to end what's been a pretty poor away record so far in 2022, not just this season, of course, only recording victories at McDermott Park and Almondvale. But Goggsy, home is not where the heart has been for Motherwell this season, because as much as Aberdeen have been suffering away from home, Motherwell haven't exactly been firing on all cylinders at home this season.
It's a weird one because there's so much good press from the media saying that we have improved greatly under Hamill and how we've been playing, but I completely disagree. Like, the last couple of games, we've been very flat. Since the 5-0 win at Dingwall a couple of Tuesdays ago, I just don't think we've actually had the heart in our performances. Like at Easter Road, we could have played a lot better. And then at the weekend against Rangers, we were just really flat. Like, Rangers were bad, but we were worse somehow.
I mean, that I think it's probably summed up by the goal that Tillman scores with, if you want to put down how bad Motherwell were.
Oh yeah, like as a team that has a manager who used to be a defender, I wonder how he sleeps at night seeing the goals that we conceded at the weekend. Of course, this is being recorded before we play Celtic in the Cup quarter-final, so I have no hope for that either. But it's just that it almost feels like a couple of seasons ago when we had Mark McGee, we would have one good game in 5 or 6, and after that one good game, we would be like, oh, we're world beaters again. Like, we beat Ross County 4-0, I think, or 4-1, and that was like our best performance of that season. And we were thinking, right, we can kick on now. Our season starts now, and it almost felt like the exact same after the 5-0 win at Dingwall. But we've only won one game in 7, and the win before that was in the Cup against Inverness. So, like, a lot of people are saying good things about us, but at the same time, like, it's a results business, and there can only be so much time you spend saying, oh, by the way, you're playing so well, you're just unlucky you're not picking up results, before alarm bells start to ring. And I'm just trying to put that message out now before people start thinking the worst.
It's a results-based business, and for Motherwell, the ideal opponents are coming to town, because it's unbelievable the record that you guys have over us just now. I couldn't believe it. I was messaging you after the game at Pittodrie. Obviously, the roller coaster that was, and the hits that your vlog got after that, obviously enhanced by the fact that Motherwell won. And I'll begrudgingly be tuning in again to see the clips from this weekend, especially because both teams have got two sets of fans that seem to really engage in this fixture. Well, more so Fir Park, because the Well boys don't like to travel up north to Aberdeen. But it's an interesting one because, as much as I say that Motherwell haven't had a good home record, Aberdeen haven't exactly been the best of travellers. Double that with our record against Motherwell, it almost seems like this is the ideal fixture for you guys to refine that form. You were right. We are recording this on Tuesday lunchtime, given both our schedules. We couldn't convene before this episode goes out on Thursday night. How much do you feel the cup game is going to have an impact on Motherwell ahead of the weekend? Obviously, you're not confident for Wednesday night. Aberdeen have got Partick Thistle. I'm very confident we'll be getting a trip to Hampden. This is going to be really awkward if this goes wrong tomorrow night. But how much do you think that cup game, if Motherwell were to get a heavy defeat, how does that affect confidence going into the weekend?
I think it's weird because I think if Motherwell were to somehow do the impossible on Wednesday night and beat Celtic, I think we get beat by Aberdeen. But if you reverse roles, I think if I'm happy to escape. I hate this mentality, but it's the mentality that we've sort of grown to have. Seeing as we haven't beaten Celtic since 2015, we haven't beaten Rangers since the cup semi-final at Hampden. If we escape with a narrow defeat, maybe 2-0, I think we may be more gung-ho in the Aberdeen game. But if we go all out, force it to extra time, penalties, and win on penalties or something like that, we'll get beat 2 or 3-1 on Saturday. It's really bizarre, but that is the Motherwell way, unfortunately.
With your weird kickoff time on Wednesday, I wouldn't actually be opposed to you getting extra time as well. Ahead of the game. How do you feel? Obviously, the cup games aside, form in the league you alluded to as being rather inconsistent, on verging on poor, if it's fair to say that. How do you think Stevie Hamill approaches this game then, especially on the back of what he will be disappointed in the manner of conceding the goals against Rangers, as you made out there earlier? Do you think he sets up to have a go at Aberdeen, given how fragile we are away from home?
Absolutely. I mean, you saw in respect to Aberdeen have been pumping teams at home this season, and we were
apart from you,
we were a lucky exception. On another day, the game could have finished about 5 each. Both teams had gaps in their defence, and we should have exploited Aberdeen a lot more in the day. But the way I see it is, if we just go with the exact same attitude as we did at Pittodrie, then I don't see why we can't get a result. Because at the back, Aberdeen are so attack-minded that it's easy to exploit the gaps in defence. And we had a few players out injured at the weekend, so hoping they'll be back, like Joe Efford, Louis Moult, and of course our fan favourite Kevin Van Veen. If he's still in the team, then that'd be fantastic. If he can add to his tally this season, that'd be great. But I'd also like to see Ross Tierney get a fair run in the team, because he was quite impressive earlier on in the season.
Was Van Veen playing on Sunday against Rangers? Because I thought I remembered seeing him on TV.
Yeah,
he was, but
he wasn't really effective. He had a shot at 0-0, and on another day it found the back of the net, but it was a tame left-footed shot.
I remember the one you're meaning now. Yeah.
Yeah, and then 2 minutes later, Rangers were 1-0 up, and people seem to forget that half chance we had. As the cliche goes, if it had gone in another day, it could have been a different game.
Yeah, it could have been, and I suppose he'll probably find the back of the net against Aberdeen, as he inevitably does.
Well, you're saying that, not me.
Everyone else will be saying it. It's fine, I can get away with it. But, both teams, you said, Motherwell maybe look to be attack-minded, but it's just been 3 home goals this season at Fir Park, obviously one of them being that consolation on Sunday. But equally, from an Aberdeen point of view, just the 2 away goals. So I'm not exactly holding out hope that this is going to be a high-scoring affair, but do you have concerns, given the way Motherwell defended at the weekend, that you are vulnerable to how attack-minded Aberdeen have been? And obviously, if you've caught the highlights from our win over Hearts at the weekend, and the impressive Duke and the way he kind of tormented Lewis Nielsen in particular, does that give you or Motherwell fans cause for concern that maybe Aberdeen can just look to try and outscore Motherwell? Because it's kind of got the feeling that if both defences aren't going to be on top, that's what it's going to have to come down to. Yeah,
it's definitely one of those that if you were to put a £5 free bet on, you definitely pick both teams to score. It may be that, and I know I actually hope it is, because the more goals that go in, the better the views are on the channel. So, I mean, if we are to get beat, hopefully it's a thrilling 3 or 4-3 or something like that, because I'm dying for something exciting. Like the last couple of games have been pretty poor from our perspective. So if we can just actually start scoring goals again, I mean, it's almost as if we scored our allotted goals of the month at Ross County, and even that night we weren't that great either. It was just a case of we were clinical, and we haven't been clinical since. And that was the only, apart from playing Ross County and Inverness this season, in which those 2 games we scored 9 goals. We haven't really set the header alight. And that's really annoying, because I know how good we can be, but the problem is that we haven't been performing as well as we should be.
Yeah, and I suppose we saw how effective Motherwell can be on the break when they travelled to Pittodrie, as they sat in and exploited the certainly spacing behind the wide areas defensively. Jaden Richardson in particular, Motherwell really enjoyed success in behind there. I suppose, being a home game, how do you think Stevie Hamill approaches this? Do you think he'll look to kind of again hit Aberdeen on the counter, or take the game to Aberdeen, given that, as I said, you guys are at home?
I don't know, because it's difficult to see, because I think Stevie Hamill's picked different points from managers in his playing career, and there was times under Stuart McCall, he would have a different system away from home than at home, and we would actually be better away from home. So I think he's sort of taken inspiration from that, and we have been better away from home. Probably because there's less to lose, because you've got less fans to sort of disappoint in a way. And when we went up to Pittodrie, we were gung ho. We had 8 corners in the first half, and that's something that's almost unheard of from us. And it's just a case of actually getting the ball in the deck, playing some football, and if we can break down the Aberdeen defence, which is, as you say, quite easy to do at times, then hopefully we'll find success in that. But at the same time, we've got to watch our own backs.
Yeah, and I suppose then, is that something, based on what happened at the weekend against Rangers, do you want to see Stevie Hamill make some changes to the Motherwell side in looking to exploit that vulnerability Aberdeen have? Obviously, you alluded to Ross Tierney. Those that maybe watch Sports Scene on a regular basis will see the pace that Joe Efford has to burn, and maybe have some fears around our defence in that sense. So, from what you've seen in the last couple of weeks, do you envisage or hope that Stevie Hamill makes any changes going into this game coming up at the weekend? Obviously, as we said, we're recording this before the cup games both teams have on Tuesday, so injuries may come into play for what we're both about to say.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that there are any exact changes I would make right now. I mean, both the goals we conceded at the weekend could have been stopped from source. Same with the goal we conceded against Hibs. That was well, it was unlucky. It was a deflected cross, and then Porteous rose higher than anyone else. But it was the same with the goals we conceded against Celtic in the league. I mean, you know, a lot. We don't really tend to concede worldies. Like, it's just goals that are very avoidable, which is very annoying. But you know, if you're forcing teams out wide and you're not allowing shots from outside your box, you're doing something right. But it's about just stopping the cross, because if you cut the supply, then you're not going to concede many goals. But we are far too prone to doing that and allowing other teams to do that. And I'm pretty sure you'll felt the same with Aberdeen at times.
Yeah, well, especially around set pieces, and obviously prime example was when we faced you. The goal we conceded from the corner is the one that still really grates me for the soft goals that we conceded this season. But just listening to you there about the way Motherwell have conceded, just really, I hope that. Apologies for that. I don't know what is going on. The joys of doing a live. Sometimes these things don't always work, but a sense there, Callum, from Goggsy of, you know, what Aberdeen can face at the weekend. The fact that Motherwell have been conceding some poor goals, Aberdeen also been conceding poor goals. How much do you think their defeat last night, 4-0, of course, to Celtic, will have had an impact on them going into this game?
Can't have helped, put it that way. I just hope we can exploit them, I suppose, like Celtic will have done. I've not actually seen it back, admittedly, but if it was anything like their defence against Rangers, as you referenced with Goggsy there, can't be great. But I know equally on the flip side, we are susceptible, particularly from set pieces, as you mentioned as well. But hopefully they do take confidence from that. I don't take confidence from the fact that just cut out halfway through. I'm just glad we were both here, and I got back from the toilet in time to fix it. I will maybe have to do some editing before we put out the audio version.
Yeah, I know. But just shows the joys of doing these live things. We've got to be able to react. And yes, I'm glad you made it back in time, and I decided just to stay in the room as well. But one thing, kind of the next part of the kind of conversation I got on to with Goggsy was he was kind of looking to see maybe what changes that the Motherwell could make. And he alluded to Ross Tierney. He didn't start the game on Wednesday night last night against Celtic, and kind of looking just to kind of put a bit more pace into their team. Is that something with Motherwell you expect them to kind of come out and attack? Because, you know, their home form hasn't been amazing, but their away form, our away form, hasn't been exactly the best either. So it's not really got the hallmarks of a great game.
No, but then again, when our games against Motherwell are particularly enjoyable anyway, even the ones we do come out on top of, I mean, the game against Aptodry was just absolutely horrendous, an absolute whirlwind. But sometimes it's games like that that can turn out to be entertaining. Unfortunately for us, we were on the wrong side of it. So hopefully they'll have that still fresh in their minds and look to correct, right our wrongs, the cliche I was looking for there.
Yeah, you're getting better at them.
Thank you.
With Aberdeen also looking to kind of change their formation in recent weeks, 3-5-2. Two options up front, Duke and Majowski, the likely two, I think it's fair to say that will start the game. Do you have a bit more confidence that, well, Jim will stick with that away from home? Because obviously we've only really seen it in the two games at Tawdry, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it, to use another cliche.
That was great. That was really good. I really enjoy when you get involved in it as well. But I think it'll be interesting, certainly. I think we'll probably learn a lot about how we're going to go ahead with the rest of this season. If he does go into this away game and stick with, the three centre-backs and then wing-backs, midfielders, however you want to look at it. I think it'll probably be more like wing-backs away from home. I'd like to see him stick with that because right now it seems to be working. Duke and Majowski got between Duke's pace and power, finishing abilities, Majowski's finishing abilities, movements, and sometimes link-up play as well. they've got the qualities to trouble anyone's defence. And when Motherwell's haven't been very, very good, I would like to see that happen again. Stick with those two up front. And I think for it to work, it probably does need to be the three centre backs. So we'll see.
Yeah, and a good point coming in from Jeff. If Jaden Richardson plays, he'll obviously be defending the side next to the Well boys. And we saw the treatment that Calvin Ramsey got in the cup game and a few games at the end of last season. They know how to make, players feel uncomfortable. As I said to Goggsy, they don't like traveling up north, but they like to make an intimidating atmosphere when we come to town. For some reason, we get under their skin quite a lot, and I'm sure it'll be a bit feisty, I'm sure, between the Well boys and Ultras Aberdeen as well. And, a few mistakes from any player, obviously Jaden Richardson's one that Jeff mentioned here, but they'll be on them. And it won't be, if it's not comfortable on the pitch, the fans will certainly try and do their best to make it uncomfortable off it as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is something I hadn't actually considered
Neither.
going at this game and about Jaden Richardson potentially playing. Something tells me about what we've seen so far is that he probably wouldn't deal with it very well. However, it could be a good chance for us to see, what he's really made of. And perhaps, in case of adversity, that's when, you see what people are really all about. And maybe it could be the making of Jaden Richardson. I'm trying to be hopeful. However, given the way he started against Hearts, if he does the same against Motherwell, and immediately goes flying into a challenge, taking out one of their players, I can't imagine it'll be a particularly relaxing afternoon for Jaden Richardson, especially on that right-hand side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the other thing that cut out in the part with Goggsy was that, of course, this will be the first game that has VAR involving Aberdeen. Andrew Dallas, I think it is, that's the VAR official this weekend, because, of course, what could go wrong with him in charge? And as I said to Goggsy, I just hope that this weekend's game, we're coming back to reconvene on Monday, Callum, discussing about the game of football and not the fact that someone's big toe was marginally offside or someone's shadow was certainly more enlarged than another. I just hope that if VAR is going to be used this weekend, it is used correctly and to overturn or award a decision that should have been done in the first place. And we're not speaking here for ages trying to nitpick at what VAR has done wrong or right, I guess.
I'm not looking forward to it one bit at all. Referees obviously do need help. Scottish referees, not good in any way, shape or form. But then the problem is you just got more of them. And probably too many cooks are going to spoil the broth and make it even worse because, they're incompetent. And I'm not looking forward to it whatsoever. It will take a while for them to get it right. I mean, in England, they've clearly got better officials. And they're still cocking things up every week. And that's with VAR. So it's not going to be great. And I just hope that it's not costly. It will be at times, I'm sure it's and we'll suffer because of that, but other teams will too. I just hope that more often than not, it's going in our favour. Let's hope, but God, it's not going to be good.
No, it'll be interesting to see what happens for those of you that are traveling to the game on Saturday. I don't think it's actually a sellout because I know that was one of the comments in there. So I think there are still tickets available. So I hope you do enjoy the trip to Fir Park and hopefully we see a rare away win. Of course, there's only 4 away fixtures left this calendar year. It would be nice to talk about an away win for a change, Callum, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, but that stat is a grim thought. However, it would be very typical on a weekend that we both happened not to be going for us to get a result. But look, if that's the sacrifice that needs to be made, then I will absolutely take it.
Yeah, and then Jeff Moreno, of course, keeping up to date with all the latest pie news, saying that pies are usually good at Motherwell. Not that I remember. I normally remember them being really, really poor on Motherwell, but everyone wants to keep up to date with the latest pie news. So if you are going and do have a pie of your choice, make sure to tweet us at RTG_podcast. Let us know how good they were. Let Callum know how much he's missed out on a good pie as well. And we'll, of course, be back on Monday. Well, we won't be live, but we'll be sitting here in our respective houses catching up. Apologies for some slight issues. It's not just the Tory government that has issues running today. We do ourselves. There's a bit of political satire for everybody to end the show. So thank you to all of you that have tuned in with us tonight, interacted with the show, for your comments and thoughts throughout. It really is appreciated. We hope we have answered as many of your points as possible. Until next time, thank you very much for tuning in.